Hi, boys and girls, welcome back. We're going to read a new story today, or it might be one you've heard before. That's called a familiar story. Sometimes we read fiction stories that we've never heard. Sometimes we'll read fiction stories that might be familiar. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you know this story. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Yes, some of you might have heard this before. This story was retold and illustrated by James Marshall. That means that James Marshall did not make this story up. It means that there was already a story written and he is rewriting it in a new way. Now, do you think this story is realistic fiction or fantasy? If you know this story, you know that the animals talk. That might give you a hint that it's fantasy. Yeah. Okay, today we're going to practice retelling a story. So when readers retell a story, we remember important details, okay? Can you say that? Important details. All right, now what does that mean? Well, first we think about who is in the story or the characters. Then we think about where the story took place, the setting. Then we think about what happened in the story. That means we say the important events that happened in order. So we use these words to help us. First, then what happened next, and then what happened last in the story. That's retelling. To do that, we pay special close attention to the illustrations and the author's words. Okay, let's do that together as we read the story, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Goldilocks and the Three Bears. All right. Once there was a little girl called Goldilocks. "What a sweet child," said someone new in town. "That's what you think," said a neighbor. One morning, Goldilocks' mother sent her to buy muffins in the next village. "You must promise not to take the shortcut through the forest," she said. "I've heard that bears live there." "I promise," said Goldilocks. But to tell the truth, Goldilocks was one of those naughty little girls who do exactly as they please. Uh-oh. So as I study the illustrations and listen to the author's words so far, I know that Goldilocks' mom, and the neighbors are characters in the story. I also know that the main character is, who do you think? Goldilocks, yeah. We know that because she's on every page so far. And her name is in the title, and she's on the front cover. So that makes her the main character. Paying attention to the details in the illustrations also lets me know the setting in the story. Remember, the setting is where the story takes place. We know that Goldilocks is at her house, in her backyard, and the next setting is in the forest where she starts to walk down the path that she's not supposed to go down. Danger, very risky, not a good idea. Turn back, go the other way. All right, let's keep reading. Meanwhile, in a clearing deeper inside the forest, in a charming house all their own, a family of brown bears was sitting down to breakfast. "Patooey!" cried Big Papa Bear. "This porridge is scalding. I've burned my tongue." "I'm dying!" cried Baby Bear. "Now really," said Mama Bear, who was of medium size, "that's quite enough. I know, said Papa Bear. Why don't we go for a spin while the porridge is cooling? Excellent, said Mama Bear. So they got on their rusty old bicycle and off they went. Tra-la! What are the characters here? We just met some new characters. Yes, when we study the illustrations and we read the author's words, we know the new characters are Baby Bear, Mama Bear, and Papa Bear. And where is the story taking place now? At the bear's house. That's right. So, to think about the important events of this story, we know that the main character is Goldilocks, right? We know that her mom sent her into the village to get muffins, and she takes the shortcut, even though she's not supposed to, right? We also know there's a bear family, and they made porridge, and it's really hot. So they're gonna leave their house and let the porridge cool down. Good job using the illustrations and the words to help us think about what's happening in the story. Let's keep reading. A few minutes later, Goldilocks arrived at the bear's house. She walked right in without even bothering to knock. On the dining room table were 3 inviting bowls of porridge. I don't mind if I do, said Goldilocks, helping herself to the biggest bowl. But the porridge in the biggest bowl was much too hot. Patooey! Cried Goldilocks, and she spat it out. Next, she tasted the porridge in the medium-sized bowl. But that porridge was much too cold. Then Goldilocks tasted the porridge in the little bowl, and it was just right. Neither too hot nor too cold. In fact, she liked it so much that she gobbled it all up. Let's think about what the main character is doing, what's happening now in the story. So she's gone into to the bear's house, right? Just walked on in. And what did she find first? The porridge. And what did she end up doing? Eating all of the smallest bowl, right? Baby bears. Ate it all up. Let's keep reading. Feeling full and satisfied, Goldilocks thought it would be great fun to have a look around. Right away, she noticed a lot of coarse brown fur everywhere. They must have kitties, she said. In the parlor, there were 3 chairs. I don't mind if I do, she said, climbing into the biggest one. But the biggest chair was much too hard, and she just couldn't get comfortable. Next, she sat in the medium-sized chair. That chair was much too soft, and she thought she might never get out. Then Goldilocks sat in the little chair, and that was just right. Neither too hard nor too soft. In fact, she liked it so much that she rocked and rocked until the chair fell completely to pieces. Okay, friends, let's stop and think about what's happening. What is the main character doing now? She's found the bear's chairs, right? She tries the big chair, she tries the medium-sized chair, and the little one is just right. But what happens? It breaks. Oh no! All right, let's keep reading. Now all that rocking left Goldilocks quite tuckered out. I could take a little snooze, she said. So she went to look for a comfy place to nap. Upstairs were 3 what? Beds, that's right. I don't mind if I do, said Goldilocks, and she got into the biggest one. But the head of the biggest bed was much too high. Next, she tried the medium-sized bed, but the head of that bed was much too low. Then Goldilocks tried the little bed, and it was just right. Soon she was all nice and cozy and sound asleep. She did not hear the bears come home. What? Let's stop and think. What just happened? She found the beds, right? The big bed was too high. The little bed was too low, or the medium bed was too low, but the little bed was just right. Do you remember what the words said? The author's words? The bears came home. All right, let's see what happens next. The three bears were mighty hungry now, but when they went in for breakfast, they could scarcely believe their eyes. "Somebody's been in my porridge," said Papa Bear. "Somebody's been in my porridge," said Mama Bear. "Somebody's been in my porridge," said Baby Bear, "and eaten it all up." In the parlor, the three bears were in for another little surprise. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said Papa Bear. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said Baby Bear. "Somebody's been sitting in my chair," said Baby Bear, and broken it to smithereens. The three bears went upstairs on tiptoe, not knowing what they would discover. At first, everything seemed fine, but then Papa Bear lay down on his brass bed. "Somebody has been laying in my bed," he cried, and he was not amused. "Egats!" cried Mama Bear. "Somebody has been laying in my bed." "Look!" cried Baby Bear. "Somebody has been laying in my bed, and she's still there." "Now see here," roared Papa Bear. Goldilocks woke up with a start, and her eyes nearly popped out of her head. But before the bears could demand a proper explanation, Goldilocks was out of bed, out the window, and on her way home. "Who was that little girl?" asked Baby Bear. "I have no idea," said Mama Bear, "but I hope we never see her again." And they never did. Wow. How many of you liked that story? Did you think it was realistic or fantasy fiction? Yeah, definitely fantasy fiction, right? This story was made make-believe. So today we learned that when readers and writers retell a story, they pay attention to the important details in the pictures, and they listen to the author's words, and we figure out who was in the story, the characters, where the story takes place, and what happened. Let's use this chart to help us do that. So, who were the characters in our story today? Goldilocks was a character, and remember, we said she was the main character. Who else was a character? Baby Bear. Baby Bear was a character. Who else? Mama Bear was a character. Were there any more? Yes, and Papa Bear. Papa Bear was a character. That's right. Let's see, we're going to put this one, put this here, put him up here. Okay, were there any other characters in this version of the story? Yes. Do you remember who else was in the beginning? Goldilocks' mom. That's right. And the neighbors, her neighbors. Good job telling the characters. Now, the next thing we do when we retell a story is we tell the setting. Where were they? In the beginning of the story, where were they? We can use the illustrations to remind us. Right, Goldilocks' house. So her Goldilocks' house. And where did she go after Mama said to go get some muffins? Yeah, into the forest. Were there any more settings? Yes, the main setting was the bear's house, right? That was where most of the story place? The bear's house. Now, what happened in this story? Let's think back to what happened in the beginning. What happened first? Can you remember? Yeah, Mama asked Goldilocks to get muffins. And Mama said, what was really important what Mom said? Do not go in the forest. Do not take that shortcut, right? Don't go in the forest. Do not take the shortcut. That is the most important part of the beginning. Now, does she take that shortcut? Yes. And what happened? What happened next? She went inside of their house, didn't she? Goldilocks went inside of the house. And what did she do first? She tried all of the porridge, didn't she? And she ate all of Baby Bear's porridge. What did she do then after that? She tried out the chairs, right? She tried each of their chairs. And what happened after that? She slept and she tried out all of their beds. And at the very end, what happened? She fell asleep, and who came home? The bears. The bears came home and found her asleep. And Goldilocks what? She ran away. That's right. Good job retelling. So remember, friends, when we retell a story, we think about who is in the story, the characters. We think about where the story took place, the setting. And we retell what happened first, next, then, and last. Now on Seesaw, your activity is to retell this story. So click Add Response and use the pictures and microphone to retell this familiar story, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. See you next time.